Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are on Okita Souji's route, and I just met my brother and he offered Okita the Water of Life, and he's thinking about it at the moment. So yeah, I left off on something of a cliffhanger there. Let's see what his choice is. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. Please, Kaoru, don't do this. If you're really my brother and you really care for me, then why are you doing this to Okita? Before I could answer, 4 human shapes leapt through the door. Well, if they say human shapes, those are probably furies. Which probably means Okita is going to have to take it right away if we're going to survive this. Furies? He reached for his sword the moment he saw their red eyes, but his body no longer obeyed him as it once had. His hands fumbled on the hilt, and the sword clattered to the floor. This is all I am now. Souji Okita, the captain of the Shinsengui's 1st Division. What was Okita thinking? Was he sad at how powerless he felt? Angry? In the darkness, I could only barely see his face, and whatever emotions it displayed were hidden from me. Then suddenly he moved, snatching the bottle from Kaoru's hand. Okita, no! If you drink that... He glared at the Furies, perhaps taking in the monster he was about to become. Then he looked over at me, and on his face was the faint sideways smile I'd seen so many times before. Man, you really never shut up, do you? He threw back his head, and I watched the red liquid drain from the bottle. Kaoru smiled. More Furies hungry for blood poured into the room. I froze, terrified. Blood fell like rain, blood drawn by the white-haired monster who had left his humanity behind. This was Okita the Fury, Okita the Beast. In exchange for the strength to lift his sword once again, he had traded away his soul. The carnage lasted only seconds, though it had seemed much longer. All that remained of the Furies were broken and bleeding corpses. Fresh blood dripped from his pure white hair, proof of the curse. Happy now, Kaoru Nagumo? Yes, I am. You were splendid, Souji Okita. There are no words to express my gratitude. He clapped once, and then a cruel smile split his face. For falling into my trap. Even with the Water of Life, the battle had weakened him. I caught Okita just before he hit the floor. Okita, are you okay? Why did... His hair was back to its normal color. It hid only temporarily his true nature, but to have even a piece of the old Okita back was a relief. Was I a fool for feeling that way? Chizuru, you asked why I, your brother, would offer the Water of Life to your dear Okita. What? I didn't understand. What was he saying? Kaoru smiled again. You don't get it, do you? I gave him the Water of Life precisely because you care for him. What? I glared furiously at this boy who claimed to be my brother. What's so funny? He only smiled wider. Oh, I'm not smiling because it's funny. I'm just happy. I'm happy I got to make my sister suffer. My sister, who has such a wonderful childhood. His voice had changed. There was a manic edge to it now, and the more he talked, the more grotesque his grin twisted his face. In his eyes, I saw more madness than those in the Fury. The Nagumo family had hoped for a female demon who could bear them children. They were disappointed to discover they had ended up with a male twin. I suppose I can't blame them for what they did. I simply wasn't equipped to produce children. No matter what they did to me, I was worthless. How many times had he been told how worthless he was? When he spoke, the words had the sound of one he'd heard so many times that it was simply part of him. I know what that's like. Of course, anyone who told me that has long since been, dispatched. I wasn't such a fool that I couldn't guess what that meant. To speak of murder so easily. Ugh. I had the same blood and the same face as my sister, but because I had the wrong equipment, I was treated like trash. Less than trash. And whose fault do you think that is? I looked at that hideous smile, twisting the flesh of his face, my face, and shivered. Does it bother you to see this face smile like this? I know how you feel, sister. Whenever I saw you happy, it made me so angry. With that last word, he lunged for my neck, hands outstretched. Fingers like iron closed around my throat. I'd like to see that face again, the one you made when Okita the human died and Okita the monster was born. Sadly, I don't think it's possible. But oh, it was delectable. Far better than I had imagined. I'm glad I chose someone you really cared for. You... He had chosen to trick Okita just to see me suffer? You... Does it hurt? Are you frightened of me? Ah, but this is only the beginning, my dear sister. He let go of my neck. I fell to the floor, my chest bursting. Raw hacking coughs tore their way out of my throat. As Kaoru faded into the shadows, I saw a last gentle smile, and then his laughter filled the night. Chizuru Yukimura, your brother will always be dreaming of your misery. Tears began pouring from my eyes. There was a man, my brother, who hated me so passionately that he could destroy another man for no other reason than to hurt me. Oh, Okita! My hands tightened around him. Okita didn't care about me one way or the other, but because I cared for him, he'd been thrown into hell. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The assassination of Ito and the destruction of the Guardians of the Imperial Tomb was later known as the Aburano Koji incident. And we skip. But we have a little bit of new text. When the Fury Corps joined the battle, the line between friend and foe grew blurry. Okita found himself forced to drink the water of life in order to defeat several of his former comrades. With this, Okita and Heisuke joined Sanin and the Furies. It was nighttime. Okita sat alone, gazing up at the sky. What was he thinking, I wondered? I thought about calling out to him, but hesitated.
What are you doing? Just get over here already.
Okay. I walked over and sat down quietly next to him. In the light of the stars, his face looked pale. Whether it was a trick of the light or a pallor of the skin, I couldn't tell. How are you feeling?
You mean my sickness, or about being a Fury now?
I wasn't sure how to answer that.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. It's been a little rough during the day, but my body seems to be healing up pretty good.
He gave me a cheerful grin.
Well, they told me to get some rest. I shouldn't have any problem swinging around a sword like I used to.
Something in his voice suggested he was trying to convince himself as much as he was trying to convince me. Really? It's winter now, though. Sitting outside at night stargazing can't be good for your health.
Oh, I can handle this easy. It's not that cold. Being in bed all the time is depressing. Seems worse for my body, too.
Well, that might be true, but Kyoto's winters aren't anything to scoff at.
Yeah, I know. Still, the cold's not something I've ever minded.
I suppose it's kind of bracing.
Yeah.
It's been getting colder, though. I think it might snow.
Yeah. What's with that smile?
I guess you really like snow. I opened my mouth and shut it again. I'd run out of things to say. Okita was quiet as well. His eyes were trained to the sky, and he was perfectly still, like a statue carved from ice.
Hey.
Yes?
I chose this myself. Pretty stupid if you blame yourself.
His feigned derision couldn't hide the warmth of his smile. Huh? What do you mean? Momentarily distracted by his grin, I didn't immediately catch what he meant. He laughed.
You blame yourself, right? For me drinking the water of life.
But he was thinking about that long before this incident. No.
Don't give me that. You couldn't lie to a baby, so stop trying to pull one over on me. You don't need to worry about it, okay? This was my decision, and I don't regret it.
I felt like I should speak, but I didn't know what to say. We sat there in silence for a few more minutes, and then he turned to me again. His smile was gone.
You shouldn't get involved with a guy like me.
What was I supposed to say to that? Apparently, some part of me knew, because I heard myself murmur. No. I refuse to listen to that suggestion. No. I returned his gaze, forcing myself to look just as solemn as he did.
I'm standing my ground here, buddy. Sorry, what did you say?
I said no.
Huh, man, what kind of woman are you? Won't even cut an invalid any slack. You can't play that card anymore, you're not an invalid now.
He sighed dramatically and slumped as if suddenly weak. Hey, you can't just act like you're sick when you want something. That's not fair.
Yeah. I really am sick, though. Well, I'm not just sick, I'm dead. Nothing alive in here anymore.
His words cut into my heart just as deeply as any sword. No, don't say that. How can you be dead? You're here with me, talking and moving around. A corpse can't do that.
True. But whatever's doing this talking and moving, it's not human.
No, that's not true. Well, I'm not human either. So what's it matter?
I don't know what you see, but I drank that stuff. I felt it. I know what I am now. I've stopped coughing, too. I guess it heals more than wounds, huh? It's not like there isn't a price to pay, though. Trying to do anything during the day is, well, it's rough. And if I can't go out during the day, I can't help you find your dad. So I can't really see how I'm much use to you. And why would you stay with someone who's already dead if...
I don't want you around because you're useful. I jumped, surprised that I yelled so loud. So what if your body's changed? You're still the same inside. The Okita I've known for so long is the same Okita that's sitting here right now. I don't care if you're dead or alive or human or what. You're still you.
Huh? I'm still him, huh?
And besides, even if you aren't human anymore, that doesn't... I bit my lip. I mean, I'm not human either.
Oh, yeah. You aren't, are you?
Yep, just what I was saying. So let's be not human together. The corner of his mouth twitched in the beginning of that familiar wry smile.
I never thought about that. I guess it didn't really matter, you know?
I do know. It never mattered to me either. If you're dead or not, if you're human or not, that's not important. You're you. That's what is.
Huh. Alright then, do what you want.
He gave me a crooked sort of grin. Can I kiss you now? Yes, I think I will. Somehow, my chin had acquired something of an arrogant tilt. The night of the battle at Aburano Koji was a turning point for the Shinsengumi. Oh, I guess I can skip here. Oh, a little bit of extra new text. Only the heads of the Shinsengumi knew the whole story, the activities of the demons, and Okita and Heisuke's transformation into furies. And here's actually the same choice. I'll stay here. Choice that we have made before. A little bit of new text. With the shogunate abolished, Yoshinobu Tokugawa left for Osaka. The old shogunate military followed, gathering most of their strength in Osaka. But even so, it was unclear how things would turn out. To see the fate of the country required more information and insight than we possessed. What we did know, however, was that the Satsuma had grown more and more violent and needed to be stopped. Believing they were acting for the good of the country, the Shinsengumi set about trying to take back the imperial court from the Satsuma and the Choshu and put Lord Yoshinobu back in power. January 16th. The Shinsengumi, along with men from several other domains, were assigned to guard the Fushimi Magistrate's office. Most of the night patrols were done by the Fury Corps, which included Sanin, Heisuke, and Okita.
Hey, don't worry so much, Chizuru. They don't have very many men. We'll be fine.
I must have looked pensive because he smiled at me.
The shogunate commands overwhelming manpower. The Satsuma and Choshu will recognize that soon enough.
His voice sounded confident, but his face looked pale.
Oh, true. But all their men have Western weapons, Western tactics. That could be trouble.
Sanin only smiled.
We needed to worry about that either. How dangerous could foreign weapons be?
When he spoke again, his voice was just above a murmur.
Besides, the shogunate army commands furies.
He turned and walked away, back into the building.
Didn't the water of life come from the west in the first place?
True. Seeing Sanin act that way always made me nervous. I had begun to worry that the bloodlust was driving him mad.
I'm gonna go check on Sanin. I don't like letting him out of my sight.
Wow, so you're really keeping tabs on him, huh? Yeah. I nodded, and Heisuke jogged off after Sanin. Okita, are you alright? Does it hurt anywhere? Do you feel sick?
Or do I want blood?
He'd seen through my plot so easily. It didn't seem to matter to him, though, as he continued as if nothing had happened.
No, I haven't felt any of that. At least, not yet.
I see. That was reassuring to hear, although both of us felt the weight of that yet. Was he trying to reassure me, or was he trying to remind me that they were only doing fine thus far?
Oh, what's wrong? You still blaming yourself?
He sighed in disbelief.
Yeah, it's true that things got a little complicated, but I was the one who decided to drink the water of life. Me. I chose my path. What happened isn't your fault. And I didn't do it for you.
Oh, you say that, but... Right. His tone brooked no dissent. I could only nod. Nonetheless, the heaviness in my heart refused to lift. It looks as though you're getting better, at least. That's good, right? He paused for a moment and looked away with exaggerated nonchalance. Are you trying to play it cool?
Actually, I feel great. Better than ever, in fact.
I nodded. The cough that had grown progressively worse for the last several months was completely gone. I was definitely glad he was better.
I'm pretty happy my tuberculosis is gone. I've been meaning to ask you, though, and why are you going on night rounds with us?
It was because I was worried about Okita, but I could hardly tell him.
We're fighting the Satsuma this time, you know.
Yes.
Well, those demons who are after you out there. And they aren't just screwing around. They're serious business.
I know that. But I can't just sit around.
I didn't tell you to sit around.
He suddenly looked irritated. Then what do you want me to do? Do dishes and laundry?
I'm just saying a kid like you should be sleeping right now. Why don't you work during the day, with Hijikata and Saito and the rest of them?
Because they're not you. Nighttime was when I felt worst for standing by and doing nothing, but I didn't think Okita would understand that. Perhaps I was only in the way when I went out with the Fury Corps. Yeah, that's pretty dangerous. I'm surprised they allowed that, actually.
This battle is going to be a long, hard one. Sanin thinks we can wrap it up quickly, but he's wrong.
With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me alone. But I wasn't even sure myself why I was so determined, but I did know that I was worried for Okita. Fretting about it would do me little good. I balled my hands into fists and tried to clear my mind. I just need to do my best. If I could make myself useful, then there was no reason I couldn't keep working on the night patrols. January 18th. 2 days after the Shinsengumi had been assigned to guard the magistrate office, I found myself woken suddenly from a nap. I didn't know why at first, only that the atmosphere in our compound was especially tense. Something had happened.
First Division, Second Division, move out. Move it, we're headed for the main road.
The rumble of marching echoed across the courtyard as Nagakura and his men departed. What happened? I made my way through the crowd that had gathered until I found myself at the center. There, before me. Kondo?
Ugh.
He recognized me and managed a faint smile before sagging back down.
He was shot in the shoulder. Kondo, can you move your arm?
The other man shook his head slowly. I couldn't see the wound, but there was no mistaking that it was a serious one. Blood had soaked his sleeve and was still dripping steadily to the ground beneath him.
Chief Kondo, we have a room prepared.
Kondo nodded weakly and leaned heavily on Yamazaki as he led the chief off. It looked as if he could barely walk.
Shimada, what happened?
Shimada nodded, although I could see his hands shake.
He was attacked on the way back from Nijo Castle. They came out of nowhere.
His jaw tightened.
Bastards just about shot him off his horse. If he'd fallen off, I don't know if we'd have been able to. Anyway, they had us surrounded by the time we figured out what was going on. We broke through, but it was a tough fight. If they'd aimed for the horse, I don't think we'd be having this conversation.
Hijikata's jaw was set, but his voice was calm. As bad as things were, he and Shimada both knew they could have been much worse.
Lucky for us, they're idiots.
What's going on?
He was wearing a scowl and clothes that looked as if they'd just been thrown on, or slept in, or both. Oh, shouldn't you be sleeping? He just laughed.
With all that noise, not even I could sleep that deep. Actually, I could ask you the same question.
Huh?
You're on the night shift just like me. What are you doing up?
Well, I was up because I was curious what the commotion was, just like Okita, but I wasn't a fury. The sunlight didn't bother me. There was no way I could say that now, though. Plenty of the rank-and-file soldiers were nearby, and they had no idea that the Furies even existed.
So, what happened?
Apparently satisfied with my silence as an answer, Okita had turned back to Hijikata.
Kondo was shot.
What?
His eyes went wide.
And is it serious?
It didn't just graze him, if that's what you mean.
I thought for a moment that Okita was going to grab Hijikata and shake him. I'd never seen the man so agitated before.
Calm down, Souji.
I am calm.
But he stepped back and took a deep breath. As soon as he was told what happened, however, his temper roared back up.
You only sent 3 men with him? What, are you insane? You know how dangerous it is out there for him right now.
He was practically snarling at Hijikata by the time he was finished.
Kondo was going to Nijo Castle for a war conference as the chief of the Shinsengumi. Some of the other people there were shogunate bigwigs. He couldn't show up with a bunch of guards. Some of the men high up in the government aren't real fond of the Shinsengumi.
Okita's jaw shifted.
And they might have gotten the wrong idea. Is that what you're saying?
Whether they reviled or loved them, no man could contest the bravery of the Shinsengumi. But if their chief were to be seen with scores of guards, there were some who would take that as a license to say that Kondo and the Shinsengumi were cowards. Ah, foolish pride.
So, it's more important for us to look good than for Kondo to not get shot?
There was an almost deadly edge to his voice.
Didn't say that.
Inoue and Shimada stepped in between Okita and their commander, their hands raised placatingly.
Souji, this isn't Hijikata's fault. Kondo only wanted to take us for his escort. So, if you want to blame someone, we're it. It was our job to protect the chief, and we failed.
Okita didn't take his furious glare off of Hijikata.
It's hard to protect somebody from a gunshot, Shimada. It's not your fault. Hijikata put Kondo's life in danger when he let him go out with only 3 men. Besides, I'm finding it a little hard to believe that was really what Kondo wanted to do. Maybe someone talked him into it. Someone who's always trying to look good. Someone like Hijikata.
Souji. Kondo.
He sighed.
He didn't want to risk leaving the magistrate's office undefended just to cover his own tail. This place represents Yoshinobu's authority in Kyoto. He didn't want to take any chances with it. I let him do it. That was my mistake.
The edge in his voice suggested that Hijikata wanted very much to assign more men to Kondo's escort, but had been overruled.
If he dies, it's your ass in the fire, Hijikata.
The commander said nothing. Nagakura's men returned just as the sun was setting. They'd gone off to investigate the scene of the attack, but hadn't been able to find any leads on the culprits. Still, they managed to recover the corpse of the Shinsengumi man who died in the attack, so they joked it had been a worthwhile trip. Kondo's condition worsened. He'd been conscious, albeit barely, when he'd arrived, but he quickly developed a fever and passed into fitful sleep.
Kondo's got the worst luck, huh?
I don't know, not much worse than yours. He grinned. The furious man from earlier was someone else entirely. Well, I've heard it was really hard to hit someone with a gun.
You can't hit crap from more than a couple yards away.
The grin was still there, and I wasn't quite sure how to respond to it. Could he really laugh off something that had obviously had such a pronounced effect on him?
Oh yeah, I forgot to talk to Heisuke about something. Think you could just wait here? You're going to leave me alone? In the middle of the night?
Of course.
Thanks, Chizuru. I'm leaving you in charge here, alright?
In charge of what? I sighed as I watched him head off toward the back of the compound. With nothing to do, I let my gaze shift up toward the star-specked sky and watched the thin clouds drift across the moon. I didn't realize how long I'd been standing there until Heisuke ran up to me. What's wrong? He was lying about going to see Heisuke.
Have you seen Souji? I can't find him anywhere.
What? Something felt wrong. I didn't like it. He went to look for you.
Me?
He frowned.
I've been on duty at my station for, well, all night. I never saw Souji.
What? Something was definitely wrong. Maybe we should tell Hijikata that Okita's missing. Heisuke nodded.
What the hell's he thinking? You can't just abandon your post, Souji.
I could hear him mumbling to himself under his breath as he headed off toward the entrance to the main hall. I'm going to go look too. I knew that I wasn't supposed to go out on my own without express permission from Hijikata, but I couldn't just leave Okita out there by himself. Before long, I found him. He was hard to miss. He had come under attack from a whole gang of adversaries, and yet every time his sword moved, men screamed and blood stained the ground at his feet.
That's Okita.
The Satsuma men filling the street cried out in fear.
Okita, the Shinsengumi.
There was no hesitation in his movements. As the Satsuma began to flee, he fell on them like a tide of steel, every blow ending a life.
Please, no!
The man fighting in the street before me was no human. He was an engine of slaughter. Okita! There was no escape. Okita's skill as a human was practically unsurpassed. With the speed and strength of a fury, he became a force of nature. Not one of the men before him would leave the street alive. As the last fell, he slid his sword, still wet with blood, back into its scabbard, and turned in search of the next victim. Okita! I threw myself into his path. Oh, not a good move, especially— oh no, he's not in fury mode.
What are you doing here?
His gaze was almost sharp enough to draw blood. I came to stop you! His expression twisted into something half between stunned surprise and disgust.
You? Stop me? I'm just doing my job. You don't get to tell me to stop.
There was a cold fury beneath his words that made my throat tighten. Is this really going to help the Shinsengumi?
My job is to kill our enemies.
If you really think it's your duty to kill all these men like this, then why did you leave without telling anyone? You already know, don't you? This is wrong.
Are you trying to say you think I'm doing this for my own reasons, not the Shinsengumi?
I nodded. He wanted to kill anyone who'd had a hand in the attack on Kondo. That was his reason. I knew it.
Well, let's say you're right. What's wrong with me doing what I'm doing?
Well, I struggled to find the words.
It's my duty to kill. So long as the result's the same, what's it matter if I get there a little differently?
Alright, so I had to say, I want you to do the right thing, and then I save the game because— oh, actually, we'll get back to that in a moment. Okita. Oh, and actually, we'll go ahead and stop the video there too, because I think we have enough material for half an hour. So, hope to see you in my next video, or some of my other ones, and I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye bye, everybody.